Okay, I would like to call to order the regular city council meeting of Tuesday, August 1st to order. And first we'll have approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. And before we do public comment, we do need to have another moment of silence for a community member who passed away. And her name was Janice Early. So if everyone could please join me in a moment of silence for Janice. Thank you. Okay, is there anyone that would like to make public comment? Jan?
I'm Jan Siebert Ormond, and this letter is also from my husband, Wes Ormond. Dear Mayor and City Councilors, we are concerned about our Cannon Beach water. We have heard on the KMUN local news a few weeks ago that May and June 2023 were the driest May and June in our area since 1895. July dryness was likely very similar. This summer, Acola Creek has had larger amounts of algae than we've ever seen in the 35 years we've lived here. The unusual amount of algae growth can be a sign of ecological imbalance that we as a community need to know about, understand, and if needed, address. We request a comprehensive water report for ourselves as well as for you all as soon as possible. It is only the first day of August, and we need to think about conserving our water supply and usage going forward. We know there are communities that have kept going as if there were no water problems when there actually were, in terms of supply, as well as other issues. These communities have come to regret not dealing with their water earlier on. We need to know and be proactive for the sake of all of us, residents, visitors, animals, and plants alike. We're all in this together. We ask for information concerning the ecological health and function of Acola Creek, especially during the past 6 months, regarding such variables as flow levels data from various locations on the creek, including intake and output numbers, water temperatures data from various locations on the creek, nitrate levels data from various locations on the creek as well, phosphorus levels data also from various locations on the creek, wastewater treatment facility levels data, the flow of wastewater output to the creek, and from the public works thresholds when alerts kick into gear. In closing, we'd like very much to foster further conversations with our city staff and local environmental organizations about possible projects to increase monitoring and the maintenance of healthy summer flows for our Acola Creek system. As has been stated by many here and the world over, water is precious, water is life. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Anyone else out in that vast audience make public comments? Is there anyone online that would like to speak?
Yeah, Jim Pano has his hand up.
Go ahead, Jim.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me now?
Yes, Jim.
I wanted to reach out. I'm unable to be there tonight, but Bruce had left me a message about a possible topic that you guys would maybe talk about today, and that was additional bus service. He asked if I could reach out and get some information from businesses, but of course, one day's notice is not enough time to get any sort of valuable feedback. But I wanted to comment and give you guys a heads up on what my perspective of it is from conversations I've had around town. When bus service stopped, it was quite an eye-opener how many of our employees in this community actually use the bus service to get to town on a daily basis. So any additional bus service would be very helpful to the business community and the employees being able to come to town. I wasn't able to get an email out to you guys or reach out and talk to anybody. I did have a brief conversation with Chief Skirmahorn at the hall today, but I just wanted to give you my 2 cents. So if you guys do have an opportunity to talk about that, you at least have that information at hand. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else online? Okay, so we'll go ahead and close public comment. And the first item on the agenda is ordinance number 2307, an ordinance approving the vacation of portions of Beaver Street located within the corporate city limits of Cannon Beach, Clatsop County, Oregon, consideration of access easement. Back report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This subject was first discussed on July 25th, 2023 at a workshop. On May 1st, 2023, CETA requested on behalf of the city of Cannon Beach a street vacation in order to construct a covered entrance canopy and provide space for required off-street parking at the former Cannon Beach Elementary School. The vacation is intended to remedy issues relating to pedestrian safety and provide a location for off-street parking to be provided at the property. The May 25th, 2023 meeting, the Planning Commission unanimously voted to recommend to the City Council approval of the partial vacation of Beaver Street, public right-of-way. That was vacation number 23-01. A public hearing has been scheduled for July 25th, 2023, and that was held. Under ORS 271.130.130, the city can initiate a street vacation using a process similar to the one provided for members of the public. However, unlike members of the public, when the city is the applicant, it is not required to obtain consent from all abutting property owners or the consent of more than 2/3 of the property owners in the affected area. However, the city is required to provide notice of the vacation and public hearing under ORS 271.110. To that end, the city has provided notice to all property owners in the affected area and is not aware of any, nor do we anticipate any objections to the vacation. Because the proposed vacation will impact road access for 2 property owners, city negotiated a non-exclusive road easement with these property owners to ensure their continued access to Beaver Street. These easements will be executed once the vacation occurs. ORS 271.130(1) requires the city to consider if the vacation will substantially affect the property values of any abutting properties. Particularly with these easements in place, the city has no evidence that the vacation will impact property values. A public hearing was held on July 25th to take testimony on this matter, including the impact on the affected and abutting property owners and whether the public interest will be prejudiced by the vacation. There was no vote taken on that evening, and it was decided that we would have the initial vote here tonight.
Okay, does anybody have any questions of staff? Okay, so we'll move to considering the topic.
Mayor,
Yes.
City Attorney Ashley Driscoll, just a couple notes. Bruce adequately summarized the staff report. When voting on this matter, the council, after the public hearing, should consider a number of matters, which are reflected in the staff report and the ordinance, but I'm going to bring them to your attention. Whether or not notice was properly given pursuant to the statute, whether or not the public interest is in favor of the vacation. And again, as Bruce noted, whether or not the property values of the abutting property owners would be substantially impacted if the vacation was granted. As Bruce noted, typically when a private party petitions for a vacation, they also have to show that they received a minimum amount of consent for abutting and affected property owners, you don't have to do so here. These items are already reflected in the staff report and the ordinance. I just wanted to bring them to your attention in case council would like to discuss any one of them.
Thank you. Is there anyone that would like to discuss any of those items?
Just other than the sake of the record, that we deliberated over this but didn't vote, but we heard extensive testimony from at least one neighbor.
Right.
Who was in favor of the project as long as he was given an assurance that he was able to meet access to his property.
Right.
I'll move to approve the first reading of ordinance number 23-07.
Second,
Okay, so by title only, I'm going to read ordinance number 2307. An ordinance approving the vacation of portions of Beaver Street located within the corporate city limits of Cannon Beach, Clatsop County, Oregon, consideration of access easement. Is there any discussion? Okay, roll call for the first reading.
Counselor Ogilvy,
yes.
Council President McCarthy,
Yes.
Counselor Hayes,
Yes.
Counselor Kerr,
yes,
Mayor No.
Yes. So it's unanimous. I will read the second reading and read it by title. Ordinance number 2307 and ordinance.
We need another motion on
I
this.
think you need a
Oh.
vote on the second reading.
I move to
Second
approve the
reading.
second reading
Oh, sorry.
and adopt ordinance number
Sorry.
23-07.
Second,
Okay. Now I do roll call or read it.
Now you read it.
I'm gonna get this one. Okay, now ordinance number 2307, an ordinance approving the vacation of portions of Beaver Street located within the corporate city limits of Cannon Beach, Clatsop County, Oregon. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Counselor Hayes,
Yes.
Counselor Kerr,
yes,
Counselor Ogilvy,
yes.
Council President McCarthy,
Yes.
Mayor No.
Yes. Okay, so I will announce that ordinance number 2307 has been adopted and will become effective 30 days from adoption.
So in this item, we have another motion needed for the easement as well.
Okay,
Move to authorize the easements upon approval of the right-of-way vacation through ordinance 23-07.
Second.
okay, any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Council President McCarthy,
Yes.
Counselor Hayes,
Yes.
Counselor Kerr,
yes,
Counselor Ogilvy,
Yes.
Mayor No.
Yes. Okay, moving to our next ordinance. For the ordinance is number 2308, a comprehensive plan amendment and zone change for tax lot 5103 2BC 00000, an undeveloped property north of the intersection of East Surfcrest Avenue and US Highway 101. Could we have a staff report, please?
Yeah, good evening, council. As you can recall, Jeffrey Moon had requested a comprehensive plan map amendment and rezone from residential very low density to residential medium density for a property near the intersection of East Suncrest Avenue and US Highway 101. The public hearing was held by the council on July 11th, and the council approved the comprehensive plan amendment and zone change and requested staff to provide the orders, the findings of fact, and an ordinance for adoption. And those documents are provided to the council for adoption this evening. One of the items that will need to be addressed is the wording in the final whereas of the ordinance. It mistakenly states that the motion was to deny when the motion was to approve. So the final whereas should be read as far as whereas the public hearing on the above entitled matter was opened and closed before the city council on July 11th, 23rd meeting, and the city council rendered a final decision to approve the comprehensive plan map amendment and zone change. So staff was recommending that the council approve ordinance 2308 as amended.
Okay, questions for staff?
And when it comes time for a motion, we just need to make that clarification.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and in the script, we did approve the first reading of ordinance 2308 as amended.
Any other questions for the staff? Okay, so we'll move to considering the topic.
We can get it done tonight.
Want to be a little more formal. Making
That's
a
my
motion.
discussion. I
Oh,
will.
that's your discussion. Okay, I'm sorry.
Are we opening it for discussion now? I thought that happened after the motion. According to that,
According to our script, it does.
Yeah.
Is that correct? I mean, if you have questions of the staff.
okay.
Okay, I move to approve the first reading of ordinance number 23-08 as amended.
Thank you.
Second,
Okay. By title only, or 23 comprehensive plan amendment and zone change for tax lot 51032B C 00400, an undeveloped property north of the intersection of East Surfcrest Avenue and US Highway 1. Is there discussion?
Yes.
Okay.
I have a statement I would like to read into the record.
Okay.
Very short. This council had an opportunity to support and increase the workforce housing and long-term rental market by requiring a deed restriction on the Moon property, but declined to do so. Instead, the council had a response to the word housing without making a careful or considered analysis of how this application would actually accomplish the goal you've all said you want to achieve. This will end up another Nicholson debacle, and I'm sorry.
Okay. Any other discussion? So roll call for the first reading?
Counselor Kerr,
No.
Counselor Ogilvy,
yes.
Council President McCarthy.
Yes.
Counselor Hayes,
Yes,
Mayor Knopf.
Yes. Okay, so if not, if it's not unanimous, it's the end of the agenda item.
Yes.
Okay,
And we
thank
can
you.
bring this back next week for the second reading if that's what you'd like.
Is that what everyone would like to do?
That's fine with me.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Lisa. Okay, now we're going up to resolutions. So the first one is resolution 2313 for the purpose of approving increases and decreases to the fiscal year 2023-2024 budget, making an interfund transfer of appropriations and Midway and I practice it, pump station enclosure project award. Staff report, Karen?
So to make the city's wastewater system more resilient against storms and power outages, the city has acquired generators to provide backup power to these essential structural items. 2023-24 adopted budget allocated $220,000 to enclose Midway and Siusla pump stations and protect these high-value generators from exposure to the elements. Beginning in April, the city advertised this project for public bid 3 times. No bids were received on the first bid opening. On the second bid opening date, only 1 bid, well over the budgeted value, was received, and the city rebid the project to gain a better understanding of the project's market value and to encourage a wider pool of competitive bids. The city received 3 responsive bids on July 20th, 2023, at the conclusion of the 3rd advertisement cycle. 3 bids were received, and now the apparent low responsive bidder was O'Brien and Company LLC from Wilsonville, Oregon, with a bid amount of $465,700.48. In accordance with the CBMC 2.08.080 the city council must authorize the contract award for public improvements projects of this dollar amount. Based on the difficulties faced in procuring responses and because the lowest bid was 111% higher than the budgeted dollar amount, staff has determined that the original estimate of this project's market value submitted to the budget committee was too low. Adequate funding is not currently allocated to this capital project in the 23-24 wastewater reserve fund. However, funding allocated to the wastewater reserve fund contingency and wastewater fund contingency budget lines is sufficient to meet the lowest bid with a 10% project contingency to cover associated bid advertisement cost, permitting and any unanticipated project cost determined necessary during the construction. This would necessitate a transfer of $55,500 from the wastewater reserve contingency fund and $236,770 from the wastewater operating contingency fund for a project total of $512,270. Provided there is no interruption from supply chain delays or other similar unmitigable factors, it is expected that the project will be completed by April 19th of 2024. Staff recommends adopting Resolution 2313, authorizing the intra-fund transfer.
Okay, are there questions for Karen?
Karen, what projects do we have coming up that may require some of these funds that we'd have to reallocate?
Well, I'll talk to you about another one. It's in water, but for wastewater, there really isn't any that we're concerned that we would have to draw from our contingency.
Okay,
Otherwise, I would not have felt comfortable making this recommendation.
thank you very much.
Gary?
It sounds like it's gonna be a recurring theme tonight. So is there a problem with our bidding or budgeting process, or what's happening out there? Inflation, a lack of service providers? I mean, what are we facing here?
And thank you for asking me that, because I did want to just give council some input based on the common thread tonight. The last 3 years, I think each time I've come before you in the budget committee and council talking about budget and our estimates and trying to pre-engineer projects to a level that we had a more accurate estimate of what I would be asking you for during the budget process. With COVID, the supply chain debacles and whatnot, it has produced an atmosphere that we haven't seen in a long time. And I reached out to numerous engineering firms that the city has done business with over the last 10 to 15 years. And I asked them, what are they seeing in the marketplace? And it was unanimous with each of them, emails that I received back saying, in the last 5 or 8 to 10 years, they have typically seen acceptable levels of plus or minus 25% outside the engineering estimate. We actually saw less than that here at the city, but that was their percentage that they've seen based on the volume they do, and they do 10 times what we do. That's their daily business. They also said it made it difficult to estimate costs simply because of availability of contractors, staffing issues that contractors have had, the timeframes in which some of these projects are needed to be completed. Many of ours here are weather dependent and tourist season swings that we have to operate outside that. But that's not universal to just us. That's everywhere that's happening. They have to schedule things based on weather and other variable conditions. So they said between that and just the volatility of the construction market as a whole, that they are seeing bids come in as high as 100% over the estimates. That's been a pretty common thing that they've seen. So my question to them is, what can I do better because it costs us every time we're putting these bids out. It's a tremendous amount of staff time, it's city expense, just to do an advertisement online in a newspaper, not even a printed copy, just online, is in the $1,000 range. And so every time we have to rebid this, I think it's costing the city money. And so I said, what can I fine tune better in our process to get these costs more accurate? And he said, there's really nothing. I mean, you're doing a pre-engineered, you're doing a deep dive enough without doing a full set of engineered plans. And in some cases, we have full sets of engineered plans before I even go to budget. But just the delay between actually getting our budget for that budget year and getting the approval to put it out to bid, that time span right there just adds that variable and that additional cost increase that we're seeing in the materials. Last time I came to budget, I think I gave you guys a quote of anywhere from about 32% to 6%. We were seeing with the spikes and materials. A lot of that was cedar. We were seeing we use a lot of cedar siding in our projects. Pipe, some pipe we just couldn't get. It was just not available, 12-inch pipe. You just couldn't get your hands on it. And if you did, you waited a long time and it was costly. So we're seeing some of that level out a bit, but I think the resource issue, just the constraints of everybody is busy. Their plates are full. So if they're going to take a project like this, they have to make it cost effective for them to be out here on the coast doing it if they're not from this local area.
Other questions?
The final three bids you got were they weren't that far apart from each other, right?
They weren't as far as what some of the other engineering firms are seeing, but this is significant to what we're used to seeing.
Big River and those, I mean, that was almost twice as much as McEwen, which, wow.
I thought about this a lot before I came before you, and I literally made my pros and cons of moving forward on this, because I have to say I struggled with it as much as I did one of the other bids we're going to talk about. What makes this different is this is a critical part of our infrastructure.
Yeah.
We have very expensive generators that you allowed me to purchase, and they're waiting for those add-ons to be done so we can get them at those pump stations. So I feel like we're at a position where we really don't have a choice to go forward. We can't just leave the generator sitting there, because there's a warranty associated with those generators as well. So, I mean, this one is a no-brainer. It's one of those times where I think we just have to swallow hard. I'll try to do better going forward to really fine-tune our engineering so that we get more competitive. If I can get further out in front of it, where we can put the bids out a year in advance, it'd be great. But with our current process, that's extremely difficult to do.
No, I don't see this as any fault of yours whatsoever. To me, what it is it's sort of being held hostage
It is,
by the construction companies.
much so.
That's disturbing, but I don't know a solution for it.
Yeah. And it's not a good way. It doesn't feel good to do business that way. Yeah.
No.
Any other questions? Anyone ready to make a motion?
Yeah, I move to adopt the resolution 2313 for the purpose of approving increases and decreases to the fiscal year 2023-2024 budget by making an interfund transfer of appropriations.
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Counselor Ogilvy,
Yes.
Council President McCarthy,
Yes.
Counselor Hayes,
Yes.
Counselor Kerr,
Yes.
Mayor Knopf.
Yes.
I see we need another motion then.
I move to approve the contract award to O'Brien and Company LLC for the Midway and Sayusla Pump Station Enclosures Project.
Second?
There's a second. Okay, any further discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Counselor Hayes,
Yes.
Counselor Kerr,
Yes.
Counselor Ogilvy,
Yes.
Council President McCarthy,
Yes.
Mayor Knopf.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry I had to bring that decision to you. And I commit to you that we will manage our wastewater budget so we don't have to come back and talk about any more contingency.
Okay,
Well, don't go anywhere.
yeah. Okay, so
Here we go again.
next on the agenda, we have resolution 2314 for the purpose of approving increases and decreases to the fiscal year 2023-24 budget for making an interfund transfer of appropriations and the East Harrison Water Line Replacement Project. That report?
Thank you. Again, to increase the capacity and reliability of the city's water system to customers on East Harrison, the city issued an invitation to bid on the replacement of a 2-inch PVC water line along East Harrison Street with an 8-inch diameter HDPE piping, installation of 1 fire hydrant, the reconstruction of 12 service connections, and 1 sanitary lateral extension and trench repair and repaving. The 23-24 adopted budget allocated $150,000 to perform the work described above. The ITB was issued in June and the city received 2 responsive bids on July 25th at the conclusion of the first advertisement cycle. The 2 bids were received. The apparent low responsive bidder was Bob McEwen Construction Incorporated from Cannon Beach, Oregon, the amount of $153,171. In accordance with the CBMC 2.08.080, the city council must authorize a contract award for public improvement projects of this dollar amount. $150,000 is allocated to this capital project in the 2023-24 Water Reserve Fund. However, funding allocated to the Water Reserve contingency, $240,000 budget line, is sufficient to meet the lowest bid with a 10% project contingency, $169,258, to cover associated bid advertisement costs, bidding, and any unanticipated project costs determined necessary during construction. This would necessitate a transfer of $19,258 from the Water Reserve contingency. Provided there is no interruption from supply chain delays or other similar unmitigable factors, it is expected that the project will be completed November 6th of 2023. Recommendation, staff recommends adopting resolution 23-14, authorizing the intra-fund transfer.
Okay, thank you, Karen. Question?
I move to adopt the resolution 23-14 for the purpose of approving increases and decreases to the fiscal year 2023-2024 budget by making an interfund transfer of appropriations.
Any further discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Council President McCarthy,
Yes.
Counselor Hayes,
Yes.
Counselor Kerr,
Yes.
Counselor Ogilvy,
Yes.
Mayor Knopf.
Yes.
And I will move to approve the contract award to Bob McEwen Construction, Inc. for the East Harrison Water Line Replacement Project.
Second?
Any further discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Counselor Kerr,
Yes.
Counselor Ogilvy,
Yes.
Council President McCarthy,
Yes.
Counselor Hayes,
Yes.
Mayor Knopf.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Moving to the second page, we have resolution number 2315 for the purpose of authorizing the loan from the Safe Drinking Water Revolving Fund Loan Fund by entering into a financing contract with the Oregon Infrastructure Finance Authority, an RFP for phase 3 of the Water Resiliency Project. Karen?
The City of Cannon Beach Public Works Department has funded 2 earlier phases of the larger capital improvement water resiliency project utilizing low-interest loans as a revenue source. Utilizing these loans, the city can obtain funding for an improvement now and pay over 30 years at 1% interest rate instead of today's residents paying 100% of an improvement that has a long, useful life. On June 2nd, 2023, the city was awarded a loan from the Safe Drinking Water Revolving Loan Fund through Business Oregon to move forward on phase 3 of the Water Resiliency Project. The third phase of this project includes replacement of the main reservoir and installation of a north-south backbone along US Highway 101. These improvements would mitigate damage associated with catastrophic seismic event by providing a strengthened water storage system and a redundant water distribution system. The overall goal of the Water Resiliency Project is to be able to distribute drinking water to the public within 72 hours of a large-scale earthquake, such as a Cascadia subduction zone event, and to build a hardened water system backbone that mitigates earthquake damage and allows for accelerated recovery. In analysis, the city has been approved for a loan in the amount of $5.3 million through the Safe Drinking Water Revolving Loan Fund for phase 3 of the Water Resiliency Project. This loan is eligible for $20,000 principal forgiveness at an interest rate of 1% for the 30-year term. The city has budgeted debt services for this loan. City staff has worked with Business Oregon and the city legal team to draft an RFP to procure engineering services to undertake this project. To allow staff to move forward, the drawdowns associated with this procurement effort, council should first approve the phase 3 Business Oregon contract documents. Recommendation: if council wishes to authorize staff to proceed with this phase, 2 appropriate motions are in order.
Questions for Karen?
I have a couple questions. And I think this project is very similar to, I mean, in terms of the way that it's being financed, is very similar to the way the other 2 phases. And I'm a little bit concerned because we are having the problems with the bidding, and as a result, maybe some time deadline situations. And it says that the forgiveness aspect of this loan won't go into effect if we miss the deadline. So I guess the question is, first of all, how firm are you on the cost of the project, since we're starting to have problems with the bidding situation, which are not your fault, but it's still a situation. And how firm are you on the deadline, meeting the deadline, not only for this project, but for the other 2 phases, because those are hundreds of thousands of dollars in forgiveness, which we could be liable for if we don't make the deadline. So I'm just wondering, how do we know that we are bidding, that we are estimating correctly, and how do we know that we're going to meet the deadline?
All super good questions. So I'm not concerned about the timeline and our commitment regarding the deadlines. That's probably the area that I'm most confident with. As far as cost and what we're seeing with materials and bidding and so on, when we put this plan together, and we had to look way in advance, this has been going on now for 5 years. When we worked with Business Oregon, this was part of the discussion because we were so far out in front of this. All of us knew that there's going to be some evolving factors there relative to the market. So that laid on both parties, Business Oregon and us, for us to be able to build a healthy contingency in there, knowing that, using our ENR rates yearly, factor that out, trend that out for this time frame. And then Business Oregon also put provisions in place that some of the other cities that have worked with Business Oregon has already exercised. And that is to go back to them and say, we need to amend our conditions because the market has changed such, and ask for additional funds if we need it. There's also provisions for us to ask for extensions in timelines. Because of what's happening in the market and lead times with material delays and things like that. on this project, and I don't want to jinx myself, so give me some wood. We're seeing the piping level out. It's some of the other construction materials that we're not seeing that happen. So unless something, similar to what we were seeing in COVID with HDPE pipe were to be in play again, I'm not seeing anything that is a real red flag, nor is the engineering firm that we've been working with all along. So at this point, I will say that I am confident, but I'm confident knowing that there's provisions in place that I can go back and make some adjustments if the data is there to support that.
And you're confident that or Business Oregon or the funding agency will grant you the extensions that you might need and that
with the current loans we have, yes. Yes. And there's other factors that are in play as far as some of the things that Biden has signed recently that we're getting information on concerning infrastructure that may allow us to have additional funds available to us on loans like this that already qualify for that. And a lot of it may have to do with what we're seeing here. Lastly, I don't want to get the cart before the horse. The team that we have together for this and the amount of time and communication and really taking a deep dive and putting in a backup plan to our plan is what gives me the confidence in saying we're on course. Things are going as planned, as budgeted. There are no red flags that I've seen so far. And I ask this on a pretty routine basis when our team gets together regularly. Is there anything here that is giving us an indicator that we're going to be off track here? And so far, so good.
Yeah.
I
just major building, any building construction project is good.
But it doesn't mean that I'm not putting a factor in that if something were to derail, I know the move I need to make quickly to be able to readjust ourselves.
Okay. Yeah, because we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars and
yes,
we don't want to have to.
I've already looked at the other cities, how they've gone forward and asked for those extensions or the additional funds. So I've seen the process they've used and I'm prepared for that if we need to do that.
So do I understand it correctly that this phase is a $12 million project?
It is. So I want to confirm and clarify, as you saw Bruce's email earlier this week.
We've got $12 million and 5.4 from Business Oregon, and we're looking at other sources.
Yeah. So first of all, this phase 3, what this gets us is everything except the actual construction of the backbone. So it gives us a replacement of our tank, all the engineering associated with the replacement of that reservoir and the backbone along the highway. The only thing that has fallen short in phase 3 is the actual construction of that backbone. And the reason for that is we're chasing a $6.7 million grant that I'm hoping that this city gets. It will be a nice final blow to be able to put on this to come and say, we got that money. There is a matching percentage to that. But it's not a loan, it's a grant. And I'm hoping we get that. If we don't, then we would go back through the Business Oregon process exactly the way we did on this. All of these loans are 1% 30-year loans. We know that that won't be available to us if we have to go back to them with that last leg of the Highway 101 backbone. And so we could only speculate what that might look like. But I'm counting on that grant coming through. All of our qualifiers were extremely strong for that.
But that first phase of phase 3 satisfies the Business Oregon requirements for that loan.
Yes.
There's another part of this. It says, the average monthly residential water rates for the water supplied by the system are not, this is contingent, I guess, on, the residential water rates being $58.39 per 7,500 gallon. If we don't reach that rate, then the amount under the forgivable loan will not be forgiven. So where are we on that?
I can address that. We had a meeting with our consultants on the water and wastewater rates today. And we are in good shape to achieve these numbers. And doing small every year. And so I think that I just think that we'll be in good shape when we present you with the projected rates.
Okay. We'll see then.
Yeah.
Wait and see. Okay.
Other questions?
So the debt service on this 5.4 million Business Oregon, 1%. I think it mentioned that the revenue from the city's water system, including special assessment revenue, is that all a budget item currently within the city's budget,
Yes.
as well as the portion that it mentions for the general fund?
So Lori will actually have two scenarios, which include what's already here committed to and awarded to us, should you allow us to go forward. The second factor would be the grant that I talked about. If we don't get that, we have to go back, then her calculations to you would have both of those scenarios. So you can, we don't want to put it in as a loan unnecessarily when it's not a loan. I mean, the city may receive that money. So when Lori does her calculations and the debt service and all her bean counter stuff, by putting it in now as a loan, to me would artificially inflate what we're looking at for any kind of utility rate adjustment. So she's doing it two ways. If we get the grant and if we don't get the grant. And that will be brought to you guys in future discussion. And that's what the consultant is finalizing. We had a call today to try to wrap that up. So to answer your question, the scenic route, it is all accounted for, but they're looking at it two ways until we know if we get the 6.7 million grant. Okay.
Even that second portion is covered under the debt service mentioned here. The potential debt service for.
So what this is
That's,
speaking to is minus the 6.7.
yes, that's what I thought.
And that is covered in her rate estimates already.
And both now are line items in the
Yes.
23-24 budget.
Yep. We went over this during the budget, and that's what she's got that in our current budget.
And has the loan contract terms been reviewed by city attorney?
Always.
Perfect. Shouldn't have to ask that question, right?
No, it's okay. I appreciate it.
And what's the timeline for hearing that we are awarded the grant?
Say again.
What's the timeline? When are we going to hear the good news?
They don't ever give us a specific. It's kind of like the FEMA situation with the bridge. We're hoping in November to get some feedback on this. That we either got it or we didn't get it.
Okay.
So it could be January, but I'm really hoping. The person that helped us chase the grant said that she's expecting that we would see something in the fall. And I said, what's fall to you? Because it's September to me. And she said, wish that summer away. She said probably November timeframe, I'd expect to hear something. So I'm hoping she's accurate. She's chased this grant for other entities beyond ours. And so she's familiar with it. So I trust her.
Okay. Other questions? Okay.
I move to adopt the resolution and approve the signature card for the purpose of authorizing a loan from the Safe Drinking Water Revolving Loan Fund.
Second?
Got quite a pattern going on here tonight.
I give Brandon a second to get there.
Is there any further discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Counselor Ogilvy.
Yes.
Council President McCarthy.
Yes.
Counselor Hayes.
Yes,
Counselor Kerr.
Yeah.
Mayor Knopf.
Yes.
go ahead, Brandon.
I move to approve the RFP for engineering, design and construction management services for phase 3 of the water resiliency project.
Second.
Yeah. Any further discussion? What a team. Okay, roll call, please.
Counselor Hayes.
Yes,
Counselor Kerr.
Yes.
Counselor Ogilvy.
Yes.
Council President McCarthy.
Yes.
Mayor Knopf.
Yes. Okay, good. Next, we have action items and Karen is going to talk about the Midtown restroom additions and remodel project award. We're not.
Hey, this is our reality check tonight. The 2023-24 adopted budget allocated $250,000 to fund a building addition and of the existing Midtown restroom facilities. Beginning in April, the city advertised this project for public bid 3 times, only receiving 2 responsive bids on July 24th, 2023, at the conclusion of the 3rd advertisement cycle. Analysis showed 2 bids were received. The apparent low responsive bidder was Richards Remodeling and Construction with a bid amount of $535,436, 114% higher than the budgeted value. Adequate funding is not currently allocated to this capital project in the 23-24 general fund, considering demands placed on the city's general fund due to generally increasing cost of goods and services for ongoing projects. Staff intends to reevaluate this project's value and capture this increased expectation in the 24-25 fiscal year budget proposal, whereafter staff will rebid the project to do better respond to the already high demands on the public facility. Little editorial again. This was a deeply disappointing bid. I think you guys know how important this was, not only to my team, but I think to the community as a whole. It took a long time to get here with all kinds of controversy and a little drama along the way. And so our team was very excited about being able to move forward with this. Having another season of porta potties out there isn't anybody's favorite thing, but this just did not feel good. It was just not a good bid process. I think one contractor just didn't get it, and the other one was just way off the charts. And so I didn't think there was any part of this that felt good about going forward, and just had to kind of face the reality of that disappointment. So I just want to share that with you, hoping that the next go around is a little different. And once again, I went back to the architect and the engineer and said, how can we tighten this up better to get better results going forward? I talked to the contractors. The location was a big factor. The expectation of keeping one side of the bathroom open during construction was another. They said it's unreasonable. It's not safe. It doesn't give them anywhere to stage their materials. And so there were a lot of factors that kept people away. And the ones that did bid, I think they said they've got to pad it to where they cover themselves with all the expectations that were put upon them, including my time frame of having it done. The delay in that process really closed my window on the back end for construction. And so I think all that together was just a reality check for me that I just had to let go of it this year and say, next year, we'll do it again. So luckily Kirk was off when I told the staff about that. I was kind of scared about it when Kirk was staff meeting, but they knew everything we did, try to get to the point of being able to pull the trigger, and they were as disappointed as I was. But we appreciated your approval and allowing us to go forward. So I don't know what the materials are going to look like as far as construction materials next year. One side of me is scared to death, and the other side says maybe the analysts are right, and we'll go into some sort of a slump, and these guys will come back looking a lot different next time. Who knows? So, but I wouldn't want to spend the money on it right now. This is highway robbery. So porta potties look a little better. Oh, yeah.
So thanks for all of the work on that. I know those are tough decisions to make.
Thank you for the support.
Oh, yes, go ahead.
Are you considering, Karen, reevaluating some of the criteria, such as trying to keep the bathroom open in order to try and possibly bring the cost down on the bid, that sort of thing?
Yes, and probably when I come back to you, asking you to let me bid it out again and kind of talk to you about that, I'll have a little more detail. There is one excavation point at that site that could be as deep as 10 feet deep. And if that really does prove to be accurate and true that we have to open it up like that, there's no way we could keep it open and have people walking through it.
Understood, yes.
There's no way. And just to stage the materials, it's unfair to the contractor. Where are they going to put their stuff? So it was something that I just didn't, in my vigor to be able to go forward and to meet your expectations of what you want to see in that being available to the public. I didn't think that went through, and I own that. So I'll do better when I come back and let you know we're going to put it out. And here's what we have to make it work for everybody and have it safe. We just need to do the porta potties and close it and probably put some fencing around it. But let me dive into that. I want to verify that hole, number one. And then number two, there's a couple of other staging locations that could work for the contractor, depending on other projects that we may have going on next year, that if those contractors were to bid on it, they would have an alternate place to stage their materials.
Okay.
So I'm working on that, and I'll do better on the fourth time around.
I think you did a very good job. This project obviously had some issues that sidetracked it for various reasons.
Yeah.
That were well beyond your control. And I just wanted to say, I really appreciate all the hard work that you put into this, and that I'm just sorry we're not able to move forward.
Brandon,
Great job, Karen.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
Right, Karen.
Good night.
Thank you. Okay, so next on the agenda, we have appointment of a city commission board or committee board or commission. And we have a budget committee person. I believe he is on Zoom. Sharon?
She's a Zoom user.
She was a Zoom user the last meeting. Sharon, is there anything you would like to say to us about your desire to be back on the budget committee?
I don't
I don't see her on the list.
I don't see her on.
If
The
you're,
last budget meeting, she was called the Zoom user.
Sharon, if you're there, can you raise your hand?
I know Sharon. Her middle name is Zoom user. I almost called you
Okay.
Abby.
Yeah, no, thank you. There's not much more to add other than what I've said on the application, but I really like being on the budget committee in the past, and I'm interested in the financial workings of the city, like I said, and it's the committee that interests me the most. And I just would like to be part of it again, especially with all the things that are going on now. It makes it very fun and interesting, challenging.
Does anyone have any questions for?
Thank you for applying, Sharon.
Yeah.
How many times have you been on the committee?
Let's see how well you can count.
Well, I'm not sure. I think I've had over the years, I think 3 different appointments. And some have been to complete someone else's term, and then others have just been full term appointments. I would say 3 times.
Yeah,
4
that
times.
makes-
I've lost track because I feel like I'm always on it because I'm always on the meetings at the meetings. So
Any other questions?
I'll move to appoint Sharon Clyde to the Budget Committee, beginning immediately.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, roll call.
Council President McCarthy,
Yes.
Counselor Hayes,
Yes.
Counselor Kerr,
Yes.
Counselor Ogilvy,
Yes.
Mayor Knopf.
Yes. Immediately.
Immediately. Get to work.
thank you. Thank you.
Come back, Sharon.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, next on the agenda, we have the Tolovana Hall lease terms. And Bruce, ready for
Thank you, ma'am.
that report?
On April 14th, 2023, Tolovana Arts Colony Program Director Andrew Tonry requested to meet with council to revisit the question whether or not Tolovana Hall should be allowed to rent to private parties. This email was forwarded to council, and the councilor requested that it be added as an agenda item. On August 11th, 2020, council reviewed the Tolovana Hall lease renewal. Discussion was held regarding item 4, use of premises, which only allows use for public purposes. No revisions were made to the language at that time. The current lease became effective January 1st, 2021 and terminates December 31st, 2025. On May 9th, 2023, the council reviewed Andrew's requests and directed staff and Tolovana Arts Colony to research the requirements that would be so that they would be able to offer private rentals as an option. City Attorney Ashley Driscoll provided language that would be required from a legal perspective, which include any private party serving alcohol has all applicable license from the OLCC to do so, and adding language to make it clear the Tolovana Arts Colony indemnifies the city from any action taken by private parties, in addition to employees and agents, etc. City's insurance agent, Alicia Johnson from Assured Partners, worked with Andrew and developed a plan that would require private parties require insurance through State Farm and list Tolovana Arts Colony as an additional insured. Recommendation is if council's to determine if private events should be allowed. Council wishes to allow them, a motion would be required to approve the attached amendment.
Questions? Either Bruce or Andrew.
Well, so if you were to rent it out for private functions, who would the money go to for the rental money?
The Arts Colony.
It would go to the Arts Colony, okay. And,
It would go to where?
The Arts Colony.
Oh, okay.
okay, let me just ask you, I know I asked you this before, I'm still unclear about it. So are any janitorial services provided by the city?
City takes out the trash.
Okay, what about cleaning the bathrooms?
Nope.
Mopping the floor?
Nope.
Okay, all of that is done by,
Take the trash out every 2 weeks, but it's not always done.
okay.
It's often forgotten.
So all of the other cleaning and everything is done by
Yes,
the Arts Colony. And then the other question I had is all the utilities are paid by the city,
yes.
heat, water,
Mhm.
et cetera. And any maintenance on any infrastructure, including furnace, hot water heater, all of that stuff is paid for by the city.
Mhm.
So, and of course, the Arts Con doesn't pay any rent. I mean, the city lets them use the facility for free. So I'm just curious, what, have you considered the possibility of, if you were going to rent it to private parties, that any money that came in would be, part of it would go to the city or not?
Well, let me just back up a little bit, let's just recap, because it has been a long time. I think you said it since May that we first talked, and we you guys were so busy here that we agreed to push the meeting, and that, which is fine, which speaks to the demand. Demand on this is very low. I came wanting in May to do a birthday party for a family that lived in the neighborhood. Since then, we've received 2 requests. One of those requests, I was able to work with them and turn it into an Arts Colony event. The second request is from the North Coast Land Conservancy, who wants to do something. I can't remember if it's in September, late September or October. So this shows you the frequency, the demand on this is very low. And what the way I want to, it helped me figure out this contract, so what the Land Conservancy wants to do is hold a private member appreciation, a donor appreciation party. And I told them, well, I currently cannot offer that to you because it'd be a private third-party event. If you wanted to open it up to the public, you could do it for free, but they were like, well, we want to make it just for our donors. And it's, especially with something like that, but in general, we want to keep, I want to offer that as cheaply as possible to them. So that's, really the cost of the event insurance, which is $100 essentially. And just a little more background. So when I talked to the city's Alicia and her title, or what?
She is our insurance agent at Assured Partners.
Sure. Okay. So we talked about, the insurance aspect of it, and our folks at State Farm, who cover us now and cover the building, suggested event insurance, easy to do. And she agreed with that. And I thought it would be better for us to just stick with our people at State Farm rather than letting people purchase third-party insurance where we don't know where it comes from the internet. I want to have somebody I can get on the phone, somebody we have a relationship with, rather than just open that up. So that's a little more of the background. And so for something like that, I would offer that to the Land Conservancy at the cost of the insurance.
As a nonprofit?
Yeah. There's no reason, I want to give it to them for free. If I could, if like I said, if we could just, that's this weird gray area, and that's the kind of another aspect of this piece in the contract that I want to get ironed out and figured out. So
would you have different rates for nonprofits than for private?
Well, we let nonprofits meet there for free, but
yeah.
So
and for this, that a nonprofit holding a private event as opposed to somebody holding a wedding anniversary party.
I don't see us offering wedding services.
No, I don't mean services. Let's say they want to rent it for a party.
Yeah.
Whether it's wedding or,
Birthday.
50th birthday or whatever, whatever it is, it would be a private thing as opposed to a nonprofit. Are you going to have different rate schedules, or how would you want that?
I believe I sent you guys the materials we have, and the rental that we had previously when we thought we could do this was very low. It was you could have 2 hours for $75 or something like that. This is a real, in the spirit of the Arts Colony and my own spirit of always, seeking to keep things modest. So, I mean, if it is approved, I think the board would have to go back and look at the schedule. But there always, there always has been, there would be different kind of nonprofit rates.
Have you had rentals there in the past?
We talked about this last time. We had one before, way back. We had a graduation for local families before we were aware of the that aspect at least. But no, we haven't been having any rentals since it became aware of it. We became aware of it.
You given any consideration to contract terms for third parties, as far as what Lisa's talking about in the case of damages or even to help with?
Yeah, no, I thought I passed along, I know it, and it probably came behind ago or didn't, we have a long document that spells all that stuff out.
I think we had information back in the packet in May and I didn't think about it.
I don't even.
So you have considered it and you've got some things.
Yeah, no, like it would again, it would need another look, but like the previous, like when I got the job, there was a document that existed about rentals. And so it's all spelled out in there. The only addition would be adding the event insurance language and cost to that.
Is your State Farm local?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the seaside.
Do you have any concerns about the arts colony facing increased liability with the indemnification?
No, when I talked to Jeremy over at State Farm, he's like, oh, it's so simple. Just you get, event insurance, it's $100. It's like, he's like, we do it all the time. I mean, I've gotten event insurance for events that I've done at the coaster. It's a pretty common thing, I mean, like there's services out there that are specifically for that. And it's, it's like, are you having a birthday party? Is there a pool? I mean, like it's all been very spelled out, I think. And yeah, and I think the city's insurance agent and our own did not raise significant concerns.
Yeah, I mean, that was my only real reservation, was I was worried about liability for the city. And it doesn't look like you're going to be using this. It's to such an extent that it no longer is available for the community.
Oh, a community event would always take precedence. There's never, I mean, like, yes, if we scheduled something out well in advance, if the Land Conservancy comes and books that date. But if there was a prior conflict, it's not a question.
Okay.
And there's, there is enough time in the calendar where I think we can. But yeah, no, there was always, arts colony events will always take precedence.
You're not going to be going out seeking private.
I mean, it'll be on the website, but I'm not gonna, it doesn't bring me, I like the idea of being able to offer a service to somebody who, like the family who wanted to have a birthday party who lives down the street, or the Land Conservancy. But I don't want to be, personally, that doesn't make me get up in the morning to want to
Go clean bathrooms.
well, I mean, that too. But yeah, I mean, that's, that's not. The idea is twofold. One is that we can help certain groups, certain families, whatever it is. And two, that, we can get a little more programming dollars to put back into the organization.
Okay, Ashley wants to, in.
Oh, Ashley, sorry.
Good evening again, City Council. Ashley Driscoll, City Attorney's Office. So I did work on this lease. It was brought to my attention that this was the direction that the City Council would like to move by allowing Tolovana Art Colony to offer the space to private parties. If there are concerns along the lines that the council is expressing, we can certainly write some additional restrictions into the lease amendment regarding private parties. For instance, limiting the number of per year, limiting the types of parties that can rent it out. We can revisit this issue if the city council would like additional protections. I would also point out that the original terms have not changed. Most of the original terms have not changed from the prior lease, which does provide that if the lease is not working for the city or the Tolovana Arts Colony, either party can terminate the lease with 90 days notice. So I just wanted to make sure that the council understood that that was an option. Further amendments was an option for the council to consider.
Okay, that's great.
Thank you, Ashley.
Anybody have concerns about this?
No, but I would like the idea of being able to discontinue the contract with 90-day notice,
which is part of.
which is
Already there.
Right,
Yeah, it's already in there.
better than that.
And
What do you think, Andrew, about further, limiting type of parties, number of parties, or? I mean, do you think that's necessary or?
At the demand now, I don't. That'd be something I would say, like, let's do some of these things, take a period of time and revisit it and see if there's, I would hate for that to be an inexact tool where it was one a month and for whatever reason, there was 2 people in November and there was none August, September, October, so I would want that to be targeted wisely.
And Ashley, what other kinds of precautions could we put in there for as far as liability for the city? Like at a party, if a little kid got hurt or an adult fell down the steps on the back deck,
Yeah, so we addressed those issues in my concerns regarding the indemnification language, that we're not responsible for the actions of private parties, and the updates to the indemnification language address exactly that issue. And then, of course, the OLCC, the alcohol issue as well. And I think it was, very smart and important for us to get our insurance agent involved to weigh in on these issues as well. I guess my concern, just from a public funds perspective, is that, as I read the lease, the purpose of the lease, it is, free to provide a community, a public community facility where, you hold classes, lectures, meetings, and other similar events open to the public and available to all those, as well as community groups and clubs. That's a public purpose. I guess some of my concern, and I think council's expressing it, is we have this lease, and now private events are renting it out, and will there still be public access?
Yeah.
And I think if we established a review process that, go ahead and approve this, let's give it a year, see, what the issue, if there are issues, if, what the demand is like. I just was thinking about having, if there was a birthday party going on there, there's very limited parking. And with school in operation there and that's at that same site, scheduling could be.
Yeah, I mean, like, I would never schedule, I will schedule meetings, like a board meeting for a nonprofit during the school day, but I always let them know, like, do not be there between be leaving or going around 2:30 to 3:45 or whatever it is. And I can't see, if I would be really surprised if any requests came for a private rental outside of a weekend.
Right, that's what I was.
And I think there was very hard for me to imagine. We would know, I would never let a party go on while the school is in session. That just sounds ridiculous.
No, we always.
You could put that in the contract if you want.
Well, yeah, but that's you, Andrew. I mean, you're not, maybe,
That's a reasonable.
I'm just saying that we can't make a decision based on relying on you, because maybe you'll get an offer from the New York Times tomorrow and stuff. You know what I mean? I'm just saying, so we can't make decisions based on the fact of what you're promising us. It has to be something that's more solid for us to rely on.
I mean, if we want to put in the language, while school's in session, there's not going to be any private rentals. I am absolutely fine with that. And that gives me a great be able to say, yeah, it doesn't have to be my telling somebody no. I mean, like, I think that's a no brainer to come to think of it now.
The other question I have is, will you be reviewing what type of private things go on there? Because something that you brought up during the advisory committee meeting, and that was topics that we may not want to make, have a public or a private meeting on, whatever, the Nazi party or whatever, as you mentioned in the advisory committee. So who actually will review what private?
I think
we can stop that. I mean,
I don't know.
I
don't know.
As far as I know, if it's a public facility, its primary purpose is a public facility. I don't think we can decide based on politics or, whatever it is.
I think we got that question answered in our,
I thought, yeah, as a third party that we can allow or disallow, anything that we don't feel fits the.
Fit the what?
actually, do you have a summary on the way that works? You did it
Yeah,
for
I
us
mean,
for the-
this is going to be a fact dependent discussion that we may want to put some additional thought into. It is my understanding it's a city owned facility. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And this is a third party that is occupying a city owned facility to provide a space for a specific public purpose. Is that correct?
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then I think I do actually want to spend some additional time with this issue before we move forward, if that is okay.
Yeah, it's something I'm concerned about.
We asked for that as part of the elementary school committee and got back the most confusing piece of legalese that maybe not ever written, but a clearer answer for both of those is certainly needed.
Yeah, I think the answer kind of came back. Okay, if you're gonna have weddings, you have to accept all weddings. So you can't not allow gay weddings if you're gonna allow weddings, and it's that.
I didn't take that from the answer. I was so confused by that
Yeah, it was.
writing. I really penetrated.
But what about if you're gonna
Yeah,
have?
it's a complicated issue. So I'm not familiar with what exact piece of legal advice that you're referring to, but I can tell you that it is a complicated legal issue that cities face, and it is very fact dependent in these sorts of situations.
And it's the same discussions we had when we made this 12 days a city event.
Yeah.
We, the same.
So if a white supremacy group, a nonprofit white supremacy.
I mean, again, it's fact dependent. It's what kind of public forum you are creating. And then, when you go down that analysis, if you are creating a limited public forum, you have to be sure that you are being content neutral in your regulations. So
we went through that with nonprofit groups before when
no.
The space as a meeting, and some residents were questioned that, and to at the time was if there was a opposed political group, or for lack of a better term, right-leaning political group, they would be allowed. But anytime it approached violence, hate speech, that was a no-go.
Right.
Well, a good answer to that question, both as it relates to the NACUS facility and Tolvan Hall, would probably be nice, so we can, our next step with NACUS facility is to get more specific about what kind of events. So we're gonna need that.
Yeah, that'll serve both purposes.
Sounds good.
Also, and we did just as last time, I would love to give the Land Conservancy.
What did you say there?
I'd have to. Why don't I look it up or do you want me to do it right now or see if I can find it?
And keeping in mind they're a nonprofit, so it really isn't addressing the issue of a private.
It's just not a public event.
Yeah, because the North Coast Land Conservancy, they're a nonprofit, but they're going to host a private event.
That's against the terms of the current lease.
Yeah, I guess so. I'm just thinking like when the garden club, I guess anybody could come into a garden club event.
Yeah.
But if we were having a party, I guess they could come to that too and just mooch off the potluck or whatever. I guess you can't stop that.
Actually, what timeline are you thinking this would take to get some language?
So which piece of it? So what I would like to do is take this back, and I would like to get some direction from City Council if you would like some additional protections within the language regarding, restrictions on when it can be rented out to private parties. Then I would like to take a look at any applicable First Amendment issues. I would say that would, probably be a week or so. and I can bring you back that answer. And that answer would likely come to the city council.
Right. Okay,
I'm gonna need to get on my full computer to find
okay,
date. I can't get it on my phone at this moment.
okay. So
Okay, great.
do we have direction?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So exactly what you said, Ashley, is what we would like.
Okay. And I'll follow up with city staff in the morning for some more details about this.
Okay,
Can we have that, when that language about the rental comes through, can we have that sent to the elementary school committee as well?
yeah, I think so.
Sure.
Yep. Because it's the same question we're gonna need answers for. Yep. Okay,
All right, thank you.
thank you. Soon.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks, Ashley.
For this, going back to council, this is our.
We have several meetings that we
We have
can.
several meetings. So after the work session / special meeting next week, the rest of our meetings are dedicated to either Roberts or community outreach events. We'll know on the 9th if we'll need any of those Roberts meetings. So we can, if we don't need some of those meetings on the 9th, we can repurpose one. Or if that doesn't work, our next meeting would be the September 5th one.
Okay,
Yeah, hopefully.
so and let us know when that LC event is too, so we know what kind of a timeline we're up against. Okay, thanks, everyone. Next on the agenda, we have the consideration of the Parks and Community Services Committee Community Grant Award recommendation. And we have two members of that committee in the audience. I think I see you out there. Hello?
You don't need this to come up, do you?
Sure. Just in case anybody has a question. Been sitting there a long time.
Nothing changed since you told us last time, right?
Oh, maybe you don't need to come up.
Yeah,
Go back.
Also much.
Does anybody have, or do you want to present a staff report?
Sure.
If Stacy doesn't want to come up, could you at least help us?
Stacy is a hard act to follow. I never,
Yeah.
I'm looking at that and I'm saying brilliant. Hey, Parks and Community Services Committee presented its recommendation. The FY 23-24 community grants to the City Council at the July 11th, 2023 work session. Parks and Community Services Committee made the following recommendations to the council for approval. And those are in your packet, listed as attachment A. Prior to COVID, a community grant potluck was held and grant recipients were invited and give a brief statement addressing their mission or objective and how their program makes a difference in the community. To be in line with health and department guidelines, we're no longer offering a community potluck. In 2022, the Parks Committee selected a community grant ceremony. The store purchased cupcakes, lemonade, and coffee, where applicants were invited to attend and given a brief presentation. Unfortunately, attendance was poor at this event. To improve attendance, Parks Committee wrote their FY 23-24 grant application packet to require attendance at a ceremony around Labor Day to review their grant check, to receive their grant checks. At the July 20th, 2023 meeting, the Parks Committee discussed potential drawbacks associated with requiring this additional attendance of grant recipients and requested that the City Council provide guidance as to whether the Parks Committee should authorize the distribution of award checks prior to or as of yet unscheduled. This council should approve or modify the Parks Committee or the Parks Community Service Committee's recommendations and advise the Parks and Community Services Committee regarding distribution of award checks.
Okay, questions? Comments?
Okay, Stacy. You had the conversation at the last Parks meeting about the ceremony, and I don't recall where you left it.
Well, we were about to give you guys a few dates to choose from the potluck. And then the conversation kind of shifted. Like, do we really need the potluck? The attendance has not been good the last little bit. I mean, COVID kind of changed everything, and then not allowing a potluck any longer changes things too. But attendance was very poor last year. And so the question really is, do we want to move forward with the potluck, or do we just want to send checks?
And so you
The
didn't
recipients.
any kind of consensus
So I think the committee really wanted to not do it. They just thought it was
to not.
kind of an unnecessary step. But I know it's been really important in the past for people to be able to. I think the intention was for community members to come and see what wonderful organizations this city so generously gives funds to. And I think that's really important too. Unfortunately, a lot of the community wasn't attending. And so we just kind of wanted a little guidance to, what do you all think about moving forward with the potluck?
Like do a fully attended event, just mail the checks to them. I don't know if there was any middle ground.
I will say the Clatsop County Cultural Coalition, I've been on their board for many years, and they have an award ceremony, and you are expected to show up at it if you want your check.
And that's the direction that the committee.
Right, and the press came and there was a big article in the Historian every year about so people came whether they wanted to or not.
Right.
Including board members, so it was, usually it's up in Astoria, but once it was here actually in Cannon Beach. And so, if the community is not attending, that's the problem. I mean, if there's really no interest from the rest of the community in seeing where their money is going.
But I have some history with the community services, and we used to have a little ceremony in this very room, looked about the same. And then we expanded it when we started doing a lot of community potlucks, because people wanted to know where their money was going to, and they didn't want it sent to Astoria, not realizing that we had some of those same issues that we were awarding, grants to. And so it was a community demand that caused us to have the potlucks. Not being able to have the potluck, I think, is more of an issue than hearing from the grant recipients. Because we loved our potlucks.
Yeah, I really
And-
miss those potlucks. Really do.
And it was a good way to get people in the same room with a common mission.
Get the community together.
Yeah.
It's one thing we really need to
We need.
think about doing
Yeah.
eventually.
And I see Andrew's just really anxious to say something. Has a recipient?
I think I'm volunteering to write a really nice press release. That's about each organization that gets funded.
I know, I did want to just weigh in as someone who's generously received, or the organization that received, that support and was at the potluck last year.
It was one of the three.
I think there's a little difference. So the Clatsop County Cultural Coalition doesn't fund the same thing year over year, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
And there is, and this is nothing but the part of it, it's become samey because it's largely it's probably 80% or 90% of the same organizations each year.
Sure.
And maybe there's just a re-envisioning of the event itself. Maybe there's music, maybe there's something that could give an extra, or maybe it's a change of venue, or maybe just something to shake it up a little bit. I think that'd be worth a try before throwing it away, because it is a really important, and you make good connections in there when you put a lot of nonprofits in the same room. You're inspired, you learn. There's a lot to be gained from it, and I would hate to see it just be tossed into the wind without maybe some kind of, reshuffling.
Thank you.
That's good input, actually.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I'm for like some kind of required, you don't get your check unless you show up, but if there could be something re-envisioned that actually did some of that, that's great, but I got nothing more to say about it.
Oh, well, I kind of like that. If you want your check, you should show up. Because I think it's the least you can do to give back to the community is to meet with other nonprofits and, have a chance to get up and say what you're doing with the money. And I think Andrew's idea of thinking of another way to get the community to want to come, Because, you know, we had all these complaints about money all the time at the council. Oh, the money's going here. Nobody knows where it's going. It's it's disappearing and the channels are not open and communication is not open. And here is an example of, okay, we're having a award ceremony. You can see where your money's going, some of your money. And if you don't show up, then you can't complain, but I think requiring people who are getting big checks like this, I mean, the Clatsop County Cultural Coalition is not giving out checks nearly as big as these. The maximum is $2,000.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so I think it's been raised recently to 2,500, but still, it's not even nearly as generous as the city is. And they are required to come. And I just think it's a little thing to ask, I do.
Say you've got some guidance from us on that and you'll work it out.
Yes, I have my guidance. Thank you very much. We'll work it out.
I move to adopt the fiscal year 2023-24 community grant awards as presented.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Okay, roll call please.
Counselor Kerr,
Yes.
Counselor Ogilvy,
Yes.
Council President McCarthy.
Yes.
Counselor Hayes.
Yes.
Mayor Dunn.
Yes. And I would like to thank the committee because I know what a long and hard process it is. It's very rewarding because you get a 5-minute, 10-minute presentation for each person, which would be like the award ceremony. And I know that there's a lot of community members that have watched that meeting, so they are a little bit educated as to where the money's going. But again, it's a great program and thank you for
And you
your
have to
hard
make
work.
tough decisions too.
Very
I mean,
tough
there's $100,000 more in asks than you gave away, I believe.
Right.
It's true.
Yeah.
It is hard.
And I've
I'll do something.
I've seen a similar distribution from City of Seaside, and we give up so much more than the City of Seaside.
More than anybody.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons I like the potluck, is because it's a reward for the city too. Yeah, but
Okay, well, we'll
celebration.
think of something new. Good luck.
How about a gala or a black tie kind of thing?
Could have-
Soiree, let's go.
The Academy Awards. let's
Yeah.
call it
The red carpet.
Go.
People could dress up and it'd be
Thank you.
fun.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks to the committee also. Okay, next on the agenda, we have consideration of adopting the Tourism and Arts Fund Award recommendations for fiscal year 23-24. We don't have to decide on any events for this one. They're going to put the events on. So
That's true.
and we don't have anyone from the committee, but is there a staff report?
Yes. At the June 26, 2023 Tourism and Arts Commission meeting, TAC completed its review and recommendations for 23-24 Tourism and Arts Fund Grant Awards. There's no budget impact. The funding is based on the amount received for the transient room tax in Cannon Beach. 70% of the first 1% lodging tax increase was effective on July 1st, 2010. Budgeted amount for FY 23-24 is $481,250. The total grant allocation for 23-24 is $247,769, leaving $233,481 to apply to the money that is being held in reserve. Staff recommends council either adopt or revise the 2023-24 Tourism and Arts Fund Grants Awards as presented tonight. And I do have, Jen, do you recall, did council make an adjustment? I know that Tracy came and talked about an adjustment. Do these numbers reflect?
She did not ask for one.
Have not.
Pardon?
She did not ask for one
Okay.
specifically.
But we could still
We can still do.
discuss that.
It's up to you, whatever you want to go with.
Right, yeah.
Want to,
No,
that
that
happened.
meeting was information.
Yeah.
And now we have the amounts in front of us. So does anybody have any questions of Bruce before we have discussion?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I had a question last time and I still don't have an answer. I'm curious why the chamber gets more money. Again, they have 2 grant awards here for events, but they get such a large amount of money already. You know, from the city. So I'm just not clear why they're. I don't understand this.
I believe that was something we were going to discuss at the joint meeting
Right, for future year,
for future years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
when we have a joint meeting with the Tourism and Arts Commission.
What
Because
happens is that there's no requirement or no restriction saying that the chamber cannot receive money in the TAC rules. And there's nothing in the contract the city has with the chamber saying you can't apply for TAC funds. It's simple as making those kind of changes.
And that's why we need to have a meeting and
Okay, so this is just the way it's been done. So it's continuing to be done until we change it.
Been done since I've been here.
Yeah.
I can make a motion if anybody else has any.
Before that, I'm just going to declare a conflict of interest and not discuss or vote on the Tourism and Arts Fund grant awards. Over the past several years, I have provided professional services to several of the nonprofits who have received funding. And some of those relationships may continue, so I won't be voting.
okay.
Okay, wait a second, then I might not be able to vote either. If that is the criteria. One time, I think it was about 7 years ago, I provided legal services to the gallery group. And
You're
helped.
not receiving any
No, I'm not receiving.
now or anything, so it's not a
It
company.
was just a one-shot deal.
So in the past.
Yep.
Right.
But
But
I
you're
need
not
to declare,
anticipating.
need to declare it.
I've been a lot more.
Yeah.
Involved, so.
Okay.
Ashley, are you just listening? Any
I
comments?
was just turning on my camera in case you needed me.
Okay, great.
Counselor Kerr's conflict is a personal issue to her. However, the standard is that if in voting or participating in the decision, you would or could have a financial benefit from that decision. If you would definitely have a financial benefit, it's an actual conflict of interest where you cannot participate in the deliberations or the discussions. If the decision could benefit you or your relative or business for which you're associated, I should add, financially, then you have a potential conflict of interest and you would need to declare your conflict, but you could still participate in the vote if you believed you could be unbiased.
Okay, well, I have no pecuniary interest anymore at all. Or even a potential one.
So I would like to discuss the allocation for Getlit at the beach. I don't think it was I think they were singled out. And I think we need to adjust their award amount.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
How come none of the information? Yeah. My fault. I was not looking at the second column. Yes. That's very appropriate.
I would very much like to see that get more money. However, I'm really concerned about us. We have a committee that makes these decisions. And we're taking our judgment based on just what we haven't heard anything from anybody who voted against them getting their money. We're just going on hearsay. On what somebody said at a meeting. We don't know what the real reason is. We don't know if there was another reason. I just, it's too tenuous for me. I mean, I don't. Watch the meeting. But you.
We lose it?
And I did too.
It was acting weird. There's back. Okay.
We still have audio. Okay.
I watched the meeting too, Barb.
Okay.
And that's not my issue is that. I don't know. Well, I know what it appears to look like, but I don't know the real reasoning behind any decisions on the part of, I just feel, are we going to make a policy that if we don't like someone's decision, we're going to override it. I'm just curious how we're going to, because it has to not just be for one group, it has to be for anybody else who comes in and says they were treated unfairly. And I've seen that happen in the past one time. And we basically, I heard the council say no, that the decision was made by the committee and they were going to abide by the decision. So I'm not sure if this seems like a slippery slope to me. I'm not really sure how that works.
So I would be comfortable in not having a big discussion with this if it's something that we address at when we have our joint meeting about the fact that it costs money to put on these events, to hire appropriate, or, people that are skilled enough to put on an event, not anybody, no. You just can't say, okay, we're gonna get rid of
Fingers and
it. Yeah, I mean, it takes a lot of work, as any of us that have put on. And I would like to have that discussion then with the commission, so that future slights don't happen.
I think it's really important that we do. And I think, that we have to have the criteria, and that has to be really clear that you can have an umbrella organization. But at this point, things are a little bit murky, and I feel uncomfortable, as much as I'd personally like to see them get the money. I, in good conscience, feel uncomfortable with us just overriding a committee's decision.
Okay.
If they have a process in place.
I have a different interpretation of this because I've been involved with these before. And it's not necessarily overriding, it's a modification. And we do the same thing in the budget process. It comes at the end of the process, and we as the council are the governing body to be able to make a decision on this. And if you feel like you've been presented with enough information to modify the ask or the decision, then that's our right to do so. And I would like to preserve that.
I think it's right, but I don't know. I think that you have to have some kind of a hearing, or you have to have a process in place, not just, you know what I mean? Here's what scares me, because what if we all like this particular, I think pretty much everyone really likes this particular event. But what if it was an event that wasn't as popular with all of us? Would we have this? Would we make the same decision? And that's what really bothers me. It doesn't seem to me like it seems partisan to me. It does. And that's why I'd like to discuss it, to have an open discussion about how we're going to do this in the future rather than just doing it.
Well, these are recommendations. These are not, this is not a final decision that we have review over. This is a recommendation to us that we can modify if we want to. That's why we have a committee to make recommendations, but that it's not a final decision that we can say yes or no to. We
We're
can
saying we like
do it.
it, we're going to override it. But if it was a group we didn't like as much, or we didn't think they did as
Well, I
good,
remember
would say,
we had a trail that the last year, what was it, couple of years ago?
Yeah, Clutchie Creek.
And
It's been a long time.
several of us voted against it but it passed, but several of us voted against it because we didn't think it fit the criteria.
That was recommended for approval by this group. Several councilors voted against it.
Yeah.
But ultimately it passed.
Yeah.
So you
I don't know.
Your judgment.
Like Barb's idea of bringing it in the joint.
Yeah, I think
Workshop
it
and-
definitely needs to be a
I
discussion.
wanted to be clear, I'm not against that at all. I just wanted to speak for the process
Right.
that's been in place, and that I would like to have the ability to trust my fellow counselors that if they felt that some type of modification was in order, that they would speak up, make a case for it, and on its merits, it could pass.
And I also think we need to remember that we're trying to be as unbiased as possible. It could be any one of these events.
So what is the reason you want to, I would like someone to articulate it then.
Because I don't, in listening to the meeting, I don't feel that Get Lit at the Beach's professional representative who organizes the event was treated equally.
But
with the other
how,
ones,
what,
with the amount of one of the committee members that was given to him.
do you think that the one committee member who lowered all of this, lowered their average down to make them get less, did so for a biased reason, or for a not for a proper reason, or for a improper reason, or?
For a questionable reason. That the terminology that was used for in their presentation was what was questioned. And that's why I think it's necessary for us to have a discussion with the commission, because it should be really standardized that you have.
Do you think the commission should have taken a strong stance and questioned this person more and asked them and explained to them that this is done on a regular basis? An umbrella organization gets money for
Professional
and
services.
you don't
Yeah.
think they did that adequately?
I don't feel it was questioned enough.
Okay.
I don't know if I want to say adequately, but and the commission is has a lot of new people on it, so maybe some extra training would also be helpful.
Tracy had talked to me about this, and some of the concerns was there were specific charges or fees that were part of the process that had been over time. And in this instance, were questioned. And I believe that other people received those, but to Get Lit, there was like professional management or something like that, but it got excluded, where in other cases it did not and had been in. And she saw it as something that was possibly incorrect.
So they were treated unfairly.
Well, in her opinion, as the applicant, yes. But what she did is that they understood that, yes, this is the ruling from TAC, but I can go to the council and talk about this, because you have folks have the ultimate decision on it.
Right, but she didn't request that we do it, which I admired her for.
Right. But I think it's an issue that I think there should be a standard language that each of the applicants has a line item or whatever, that terminology be consistent. So that when you look at an application, you can say, okay, this is what this organization is going to spend for professional services.
Right.
And you think that she was treated unfairly in this particular meeting, that
Yes.
that the Get Lit was treated unfairly? I mean, you have to have a reason. You can't just, just like it. You really think it was unfair?
Yes. I do.
Okay.
But again, I think it's something that we can work for a solution to standardize the application a little more so that there isn't any.
It's kind of a weird application. At least I remember it. All right, I'm going to move to adopt the fiscal year 2023-24 Tourism and Arts Fund grant awards with the following change. I would like to add $4,000 to the Get Lit program.
I'll second that motion.
Any further discussion?
I think it was she said that it was $10,000 that was deleted altogether. She said 4,000 of that was funds that were for administrative costs and had always been part of her grant. And she couldn't understand why that part of it was deleted.
Yeah. Did a better job.
Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, roll call, please, Jen.
Counselor Ogilvy,
Yes.
Council President McCarthy,
Yes.
Counselor Kerr,
Yes.
Mayor Knopf.
Yes. Okay.
I mean, that's hard to shut up
Thank
during
you.
that.
You did an admirable job.
Yeah, it was nice.
Would you what?
Like to see me do that more often. wouldn't you?
No.
Okay. Next, we have the monthly status report. Any questions on any of that?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
pains me to say, but I made a mistake tonight in the meeting. I had sent you an email and said that I was gonna ask for you to amend the agenda to put in a discussion about the bus routes.
And after you made that mistake, I wrote it down to put including good of the order, if we could talk about it.
That's fine.
The good of the order.
That's fine.
Okay,
That's fine.
okay. I try to correct your mistakes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay,
So I have a question regarding public safety, the public safety report.
okay, the monthly status report.
Yes.
Okay. Go.
Are the burgers here? Number one. And I did notice that down significantly year over year were overnight camping warnings, parking citations, traffic warnings. Any explanation?
The overnight camping warnings have gone way down because of Televana. There was that agreement last year with ODOT that we allow some of them in these state parks. Televana area, and they said, no, it's not worth that deal. And so state park said, no, we don't want them in the park there because there were some complaints coming in. So a lot of parks.
Wouldn't that skew it the other direction?
They were dealing with 30 to 50 a night.
Wow.
Xing them out of there, letting them stay in there. And so that we don't deal with anymore. In fact, they're looking, putting the gate up there to prevent that. There are a lot of neighbors. Traffic warning citations, just cyclical. You know what they're dealing with. Unfortunately, a lot of stops that we're having now are more serious citations that they're giving out. Yeah, and that's, like I said, cyclical. We also have some officers that love to do traffic stuff and others that don't. And so it's really you can tell what shift they're on, and if they have the time to go out and do it. Yeah.
And the burgers?
The burgers. I know the cake was supposed to be dropped off, but it was all supposed to be put in the kitchen.
Thank you.
Yes.
How about the Cougars?
No fingers in the kitchen.
Nope.
Did they show up for National Night Out?
No, and we did have a report yesterday, two different reports, one that it was crossing the highway. And we went and looked and didn't find anything. There were three of us looking, but we did find a coyote that was very large in the area. And there is a pack of coyotes that kind of lived under one of the bridges. And so we wondered if that was what they had seen. Well, then we had another report of it last night near the same area. And so we advised Fish and Wildlife, and they were going to look at a place to set a trap just to get it relocated. So it wasn't in here in danger in itself. Well, and then tonight, the reason I got called away was for the that elk that's been limping.
Yeah, I know. It's my neighborhood.
A yard off Laurel, and all the elk were surrounding it. And so I called Dave, Trooper Dave Herman, and he met me over there. And if it gets up and walks, you know, there's nothing we can do. And it got up and hobbled off. And there's a lot of elk in the county that have 3 legs, you know, and do just fine. And it actually took up to a run after a while to catch up with its friends. So
yeah, we have a lot of 3-legged elk around.
Yeah, throughout the county, yeah.
Right.
Because a lot of them will get hit by a car and they just adapt. Overcome.
My gosh.
Usually when that's the case, they can get through that. It's more serious bodily injuries when they get hit by a car.
Oh.
Usually if they'll stay there while we walk up on them, they're ready to go. Because they're gonna get injured by somebody else.
Well, I, for one, chief, love to see traffic citations for speeding. I'm really in favor of traffic citations for speeding.
Yeah. Well, just with the accidents, I mean, it's sickening how bad the accidents are getting, and worse and worse and worse. I mean, just last week we had 2 right down there at Malthus 36. In the curve there, and one of them was a head-on
Yeah,
And,
it's crazy.
no one was
People are going
sure.
80 minimum. I mean, seriously, and on 26, you see that too. I go 60, which is 5 miles over the speed limit. And
It's a
I
20
get
mile an
passed,
hour zone.
I get passed by everybody. I get passed by everybody,
Yeah.
everybody. It's like they act like I'm going 20, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
It's really, and on the S curves,
Passing each other on the turn lanes.
oh, yeah,
It happens.
it's insane. And the S curves, I see
No
people
patience
speeding.
anymore. Everybody's in a hurry.
Mhm. So let's just slam them with big
Slam 'em.
fines. Really, and then we'll have enough money for all the water resiliency.
They're all right. Whoa. We're supposed to slam that.
I don't think that's being respectful in time. Lisa.
It isn't, I don't care.
Nicole's not still on the line, is she?
Okay, any other questions on the monthly status report? Our burgers are getting cold. You guys, come on. Okay, mayor communications. I have none. Councilor communications.
I have to go to the order stuff. Is that what
Yeah.
you want? Oh, okay,
Just wait.
okay, well,
Okay, next is good of the order.
okay. All right, well, oh, I got a letter from North Coast Land Conservancy. They put it in writing. They do not use any herbicides ever, and they do all their purple loosestrife by hand. So it was a confirmation from them. I called them twice and I said, I'd like it in writing. So I don't want to just, don't want it word of mouth. So that was interesting to hear. That kind of
Typically purple loose strife.
they do everything by hand.
So the yellow flag.
Huh?
Okay.
And then we also got a letter, a weird letter, complaint letter from a guy named Rusty. I don't know Rusty. But it was a big thing about bidding. Is there anything what is that about? What? Should we address it at some point or what's the?
I follow all the bidding and everything that we do. That is somebody that has a personal issue with one of our staff members. And
Well, I've heard of him. I've just never met him or.
yeah, right. But I will look into it, but I'm also aware of all the bids that we do and sign off on most of them. And so I know the process. And this individual will sometimes take a situation and turn it and say, this person's doing wrong.
Would you clear it up so that we don't have it floating around out there?
Yeah, I would like to hear.
Yeah.
Just, something from you so that when we're asked about it, we can answer the question.
Sure.
Yeah, sure. It would be really great.
So do you have that email, Bruce, or do we need council to forward it to you?
Somebody needs to forward it to me.
Oh, okay.
You didn't see it?
You didn't see it?
Oh, okay. It's
Oh, I thought-
long. It has a big attachment.
Yeah.
But, okay, so you didn't see the email he sent us, but you guys had responded to some public record.
I responded to a public records request.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
I did not receive a reply from him, so if you guys sent.
Oh, and when I looked at the thread, it looked like he had sent, I made the
Do you know
assumption.
how to forward stuff in your?
Yeah, I do.
On
And
that.
he mentioned specific ordinances and things,
Right.
so.
Yeah, he did. He
Yeah.
was very, very, yeah. So.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, forward it
Yep.
so he can see what it,
Yep.
because he needs to know what's out there, because it's
Yes.
just. Yeah, and the last thing I wanted to ask is, remember, we talked about the attendance issue for commissions and boards, and we didn't, that's still up in the air too. Is anything,
I think Jen.
have we figured that out?
Yeah, so that is actually gonna be in next week's meeting.
Okay,
So
great.
Ashley worked on a staff report, and we're gonna be bringing that item to you guys to discuss a policy to put in place on how to get to that next step.
Okay,
So we have the
excellent.
code, and then we're gonna have who can do it, what is it, excuse absence, just all of that information.
Okay,
So we'll talk about it next.
thanks.
Thanks, Jen.
Okay, Bruce, you want to go next?
Yeah, and I'll give you the Reader's Digest version. I sent you an email saying that I've been in discussions with Sunset Empire Transportation District about trying to reinstate some of our routes. We have some funding because we, in the past, have had, I believe it was $60,000 to run a route 7 days a week during the summer. And they were not in a position to be able to go ahead and renew that. And so we have not. We appeared at the board meeting. They were amenable to looking at things where we could work together. And one of the things, let me see, right now there's a bus between Seaside and Cannon Beach at 7 a.m. and again around 6 p.m. On weekends, a bus makes the same trip 5 times per day. This route is called the Pacific Connector. And what that puts us in a position, if we want to try to go ahead and improve the situation, we're really only focusing on during the week because the service for the weekend is acceptable. My only question to you is, do you want staff to consider to pursue that and bring any potential agreements back to you at some point?
I would like to see you pursue that
Yes.
very much so.
Okay.
Because that the working population too needs to have a couple more buses in there for sure.
Yes.
And one of the problems with that bus, the returning bus, that goes on the highway. It doesn't go in through town. So people who use the bus to get into town can't get back to Tolovana because it's a highway.
Mhm.
So if you could not only take a look at, ask them to take a look at serving us more, but to serve us a little bit more in town instead of on the highway, it would be better.
They've been a little reluctant in addressing some of those things, but for good or for bad, our last agreement with them has expired.
Mhm.
And so we're kind of starting to renew.
Mhm.
Good.
Okay.
Bruce,
Thank you for that.
do you get any kind of sense whether they're moving in a direction to try and fix any of this, or is it just sort of they're gonna have to wait and see what happens?
They're taking steps. They're all trying to get additional education for what their responsibilities are in monitoring the financial dealings with the budget.
I got the impression that they're looking at hiring a new executive director as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think their eyes have really been opened.
They got an interim.
Oh, yeah.
Currently
Should be.
interim.
Yeah.
And so they're going through that process and they're still under criticism. The meetings are people making critical comments. But I think that they recognized that that was a shortcoming of the board as far as the monitoring. And so that's, I think that they are taking steps.
Okay,
And they're also trying to work more closely with ODOT and others who are supposed to be providing them with funds, who have agreements to provide them with funds. But the timeliness of the providing the funds has, resulted in certain obligations not being able to be met. So they've got things that are outside of their control that they're trying to gain control to make the situation better.
okay.
They had a $6.6 million budget. Where does that money come from?
I know that some of it, I believe that some of it comes from the from ODOT. That a certain amount will come from their fares. But there are, in a case like ours, we would contract with them directly for a bus and pay them cash for it. That's kind of what we're talking about doing now. But the majority of their funds, I really don't know what that source is other than possibly being ODOT.
And I know the legislature gave them $1 million overall to
Right.
continue service. But I don't know where their money comes from. And, people keep telling me, well, I would pay a lot more than $1 per trip if they would, just start giving us trips. But I guess one concern I have is if we give them the $60,000 to provide service, somebody needs to monitor that $60,000.
Oh, absolutely. And the amount will depend on what service they provide. That's to go ahead and provide 7 days a week. Just constant loop. It may be that we don't go with the constant loop because that's probably geared more towards tourists. Maybe do more on trips from, the North County down several times a day for people that work here.
Yeah, I think that's much more important right now.
Yeah, and was the question that I asked Jim to do, just a quick survey. I sent him the question. Would you benefit from the additional bus service? Would your business benefit from the additional bus service? And that's what I would like to see come in. May be able to get you something. Myself in the head for saying this, but maybe within a week.
I think that 7-day-a-week thing is important to look at. Getting back at some point, though, I mean, to solve some of our local transportation problems and.
We have 7 days, but we have a gap on the weekdays. It's just too far, from
Yeah.
7 to 6. So
We're
that,
talking about the one run through town.
11 hours.
I don't even have that. yet. We don't have that anymore.
I know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it was a $60,000 budget.
yes,
And that was just Seaside and back,
that was just here.
it was around town.
It was just around town.
Yeah, that's what yeah,
Yeah, thank you.
I think for the emergency, if we use that money for our employees, that's great, but I think we do need that local shuttle at some point. It's
But the priority right now needs to be for our
Agreed.
workers.
Yeah.
To be able to get to work.
All right, thank you.
And, we have food pantry customers too that haven't come since the buses haven't been running
Okay.
either. So it impacts a lot of people.
Okay, good. Thank you for the direction.
Okay, other items for good of the order? I just wanted to ask city staff about the water reports that Jan requested. Is that something that we can get information on?
We can provide all the information that we currently track.
Okay.
We'll provide it to council and we'll provide it to Jan.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, anything else? Yep, tomatoes for the burgers?
I regret to inform you, there's absolutely nothing left. And said, where's the rest of the cake? And he said, sorry, chief, there wasn't any left. But when I left, there was still quite a bit left. So
I'm out
I
of
told
here.
him I'm giving each of you his personal number.
Okay. Okay, meeting's
We
adjourned.
expect cake next
Thank
time.
you.